Hi, welcome to my talk on co-production, co-design and co-construction of dementia policy. Now actually, co-production is a term I rather dislike, but I'd like to talk about it for a bit because I think it's been a way in which power has been misused. Now, power is defined by someone in 1973 as the ability to cause or prevent change. What if your views about dementia? There are 47 million people living in the world with dementia, of which it's probably about 850,000 people roughly in the UK. Charities would like to explain this number will approach 1 million at some stage. I had a fairly traditional research background many years ago, and it would be fair to say I have been at the edge. In fact, I've been beyond the edge, and I'm now flying up high with a parachute. I've been as a professional volunteer, in fact, for a couple of years, a role and identity I found hard to get out of. But actually, it served a function. It was at the time I was trying to learn how to walk and talk again after life-threatening meningitis. So, not put off by this sort of stuff, promoting research on social media has little impact. I do my tin pot Twitter thread every day, and I enjoy it. I learn a lot about research in dementia, and I even do my own studies once in a while, and find myself to go to conferences. Here's Mick, Chris, I think that's Colin and Sue Carmody. Here we are in Perth, Australia, at the poster presentation. We're not the average punters for this type of conference, but we like to go and be part of the gang. And there's my buddy Chris, and this one went as well. I've lost a bit of weight since then. Now, in fact, co-production has quite an interesting history. Here's the David Ball and Michael Harris discussion paper for NEF, Nesta and the Lab. Co-production means delivering public services in an equal and reciprocal relationship between professionals, people using services, their families, and their neighbours. Where activities are co-produced in this way, both services and neighbourhoods become far more effective agents of change. I don't really like the term agents of change, much overversed, exhausted meme, but note here, and of course Alison Cameron would dislike me for not mentioning it here, equal and reciprocal relationship. Now, for example, I also recently rather voluminous document about involving people with dementia in dementia-friendly communities. But here's an idea, an innovation as it were. What about paying people with dementia to act as professional advisors? Yeah, that's quite innovative, isn't it? Now, this would be, although money is nothing, would be a way to demonstrate an equal and reciprocal relationship. I've seen conferences where somebody's making a nice little packet, but the patient leaders are not. And then we went over onto Alison Cameron's wise words. Our health and social care services cannot afford to allow the insight and other life skills that people using health and social care services possess to continue to go to waste. The only way forward is genuine collaboration that powerful bringing together on the equal basis of lived experience and professional expertise. This can be challenging for everyone, for all concerned. Now, if you find me talking challenging, that's for a reason. I'm disabled. I'm also lying in bed, which probably does not help. Now, this is an overfull slide. Do not at home do a slide like this, but just to outline some differences between co-design and co-production. Co-design is the method of designing the plan for doing something, like an architect has plans. The co-production is when the raw materials come together. And it's an interesting story. Thanks again to Alison, who explained some of this to me earlier this week. First conceptualized by an academic team led by Eleanor Ostrom at Indiana University in the 1970s, and described the lack of recognition of service users in service delivery. Well, of course, the history of service reform in the public sector has been a noble one, and you remember much harumph from, that's not a word, but much excitement from the Blair government about reform of public services. Nesta grumbles, grubs, and grievances. This report was about complaints. Like many reports on complaints go straight to the dustbin, but in fact, there's a table in here which is very interesting, talking about the differences between the delivery state, service focused, siloed, closed, focused on cure, compared to the relation state, outcome focused, personalised, open, and more focused on prevention. Now, consider this. This is a very old analogy. I don't want to claim credit for it, but take the birthday party. Would you say delegate different roles in the birthday party, such as organize the magician, organize the cooking of the chocolate Rice Krispies, organize the buying of the nibbles, or would you simply ask an opinion of people who've been to birthday parties recently if they thought your birthday party design might be any good? Now, this is the sort of difference in nuance between co-production techniques. Professor Edgar Cahn is one of the major gurus. He describes time banking concept, which I'll describe briefly. Well, one hour of your time, 1 hour of my blogging, maybe. Joke, of course. 1 hour of being a musician could be swapped for 1 hour being a plumber, or 1 hour being a medic, or 1 hour of being Jeremy Hunt. Now, the map analogy is interesting. Edgar Cahn says, look at the map, think about going from A to B. I don't know which country this is, but imagine if some of the map was blocked. So you'd have problems getting from A to B, and this is exactly analogous, it's argued by Cahn, to describing the terrain of policy, where most of it is missing, and it's a question of who's in the room. Hence the term no more throwaway people. Worth getting the book, worth the wait. It has to come from some warehouse somewhere. Not immediately, but it does come. Now, co-production manifesto of growing the core economy. Thanks again to Alison. What is the core economy? Well, it's not really the market stocks and shares economy. It's the core economy of home, family, neighbourhood, community, and civil society. And this very much is through the lens of social justice and the rights-based advocacy lens, which led to some degree of squashing of racism and sexism in the United States. So, very different to the marketing of co-production for the NHS for the benefit of clinical commissioning groups, yeah? So, on the other hand, looking at the networks, A is a cohesive network, C is a more sparse network, I'm trying to remember the terms, B is a bridging actor. So it's possible that maybe A is the professions, a medical profession, C is a social work profession, or unpaid carers even, and B could be somebody bringing it all together. For example, I read completely intentionally, but quite unintentionally, the Stalker book by the Suscans on the future of professions, which made me think, which resource is in fact scarce? Is it money, as we're all meant to believe, and true enough, the funding gap at the NHS 5-year forward view, or is the resource which is scarce in fact expertise? Think about that, because if you allocate services as balanced weighting of expertise in how much unpaid carers or charity chiefs or whatever you can bring to the table, you actually organise a rather different health and social care service. Now, where are the unpaid carers in policy? 6.5 million people in the UK are unpaid carers, yet they disappeared off the map in the Fabian Society's whole person care. I'm very much a fan of whole person care. It just happened that in many constructions of integrated care, however so defined, unpaid carers just disappear off the map. This will not happen in a core economy as described by Edgar Cahn. So there you go. I'm not going to go into this in huge detail. Apart from cite one or two things, is a massive slide which also tells you that co-production is meant to be pragmatic, intellectual, and instrumental. Take another paper from the Annals, Social Economy of Co-Construction and Public Policy, and you see that this paragraph is all about co-production and co-construction, which has the intention of democratizing policy. Now, where does policy come from? This is annoying because many people who you often haven't heard of, who are quite senior people in charities, third sector, government, appear as authors of dementia policy strategies. And where did they come from? Because often you don't have a massive input from carers of people with dementia, for example. Transformational change is difficult, and I would like to pay tribute to Shelley as who I like a lot and has done its wonderful nominate paper on can online innovation enhance social care, which gives you a flavour of maybe a different way of doing things. So the discourse around dementia have involved fear, stigma, negative media presentations, and pessimistic attitudes on the part of professionals. And this is the sort of thing we're trying to combat, mitigate against. But Wendy Hulko, I think Wendy's got an incredible Twitter handle called the Incredible Hulko or something. But it is only recently that the views of people living with dementia have been elicited in any kind of detailed or systematic fashion. In fact, in the 2002 Forget Me Not report, people with dementia were not even listed as having been consulted. Now, Phillip Blond has got something very interesting to say. I strongly recommend to you this book called Red Tory, Whatever Way You Think Politically. It's about how left and right have both broken Britain. Now, he talks about what is a community, and he says a community should be less about you and a big corporate or you and the state, but should be about you and other people in the community, hence big society. Now, in fact, in working out what is a big society, for whom does it benefit, once led to articles such as from NHS improving quality. But one of the things which is much underestimated, in my opinion, is the way in which the initial issue is framed to begin with, and the way in which you frame the question will affect the answer you ultimately receive. Take, for example, the World Alzheimer's Report from ADA overcoming the stigma of dementia. Unbelievably, 6% of the over 2,000 people interviewed who completed the survey live with dementia. Incredible. And this is a report on stigma. And there you go. This shows in forward gruesomeness, is that a word, of the little prominence people with dementia had in this report on stigma and dementia. Well, says it all. Now, here's the Share the Orange promotional video from Alzheimer's Research UK.
Like many of you, I've witnessed the devastating effects of dementia. But because many people think dementia is just a natural part of aging, they don't realise that it is something that we could one day defeat. To help change that, I'm asking you to do one little thing on behalf of Alzheimer's Research UK. Just share this film about an orange. You see, the truth is, dementia is actually caused by diseases, just like cancer or AIDS. Alzheimer's disease is the biggest cause of dementia. It physically attacks your brain, gradually destroying you, piece by piece by piece, until it strips away everything that makes you, you, and then you die. In fact, the brain of a person with Alzheimer's is so damaged it weighs 140 grams less than a healthy brain. That's about the weight of an orange. While scary, this does prove it's a physical disease and not just part of aging. Research has beaten diseases in the past, and with your help, research can defeat dementia. So please, just share the orange.
No, actually, it's a very good video. It's very slick, and it does get across very effectively the message that dementia is a disease condition of the brain. In fact, it's over 100 conditions of the brain. However, the imagery is very negative. I showed it to a group of people, 50 social workers, and they were all speechless. And you could hear a pin drop. And bear in mind, the social work profession is meant to enable and protect their clients, including people with dementia. Another friend of mine shared the video, but said to me that she had, so that the person could donate £1 to Alzheimer's Research UK. The issue about the content of it is also interesting. Many people, including me, believe that self and identity are relatively preserved until very late on, in fact, throughout the whole of dementia. And this is interesting as an observation. And of course, watching a shrinking orange is very negative. When an alternative view, which is equally valid, is that it's possible to want to live better with dementia, for example, through advocacy, through design of your ward, design of your house, design your built environment, through animal therapy, through pet therapy, through signage, through assistive technology, ambient assisted living. Look, I'm not going to overegg it. Here's the Dementia Friends Canada promotional video instead.
What is dementia? It's a disease of the brain. It's repeatedly asking the same question, or repeating the same word or phrase, or repeating the same word or phrase, or repeating. Sometimes it's not being dressed for the weather. Sometimes it's pacing, or trying to find a word. Or sometimes it's not knowing where you are. Or creating new words even. Swearing. God. Conversation. Or remaining silent. But you can help people with dementia live better by recognizing the signs and knowing how to interact. Speak slowly and calmly. Maintain eye contact. Ask yes or no questions. And don't be confrontational. And above all, be patient.
Again, Dementia Friends Canada poses a difficult issue because it's a very good video, very well done, and it presents an argument for seeking out awareness of dementia, but is it the right type of awareness? Now, medics are very worried about putting people off the diagnosis. Now, if you present stigmas like people with dementia pacing around or saying expletives in normal conversation, these are very uncommon symptoms of early dementia. One could argue that this film exacerbates stigma. Now, in fact, I hear that the user group, per term, of the people with dementia involved in producing this film may or may not have been that happy with the outcome of the film. But anyway, the film is out. It's been out for a few months, and so long as people become interested in learning about dementia, one could argue, where's the harm? Well, I would argue the harm is probably exacerbating stigma. Now, nudge is a theory which explains, well, the competitive advantage of corporates in becoming part of the dementia-friendly communities. Businesses can claim to be dementia-friendly purely as a basis of marketing, whether they're dementia-friendly or not. I think not nearly enough work was done on what they mean by friendly. Well, friendly for me denotes does he take sugar, which I find incredibly insulting as a person with physical disability myself. And as you'll be aware, dementia is a disability under international law and under the regulations of the Equality Act 2010. Now, what in fact do we mean by being friendly? We could be in fact friendly through segregation, integration, or inclusion. Now, I think a good point of reference is in fact the United Nations Convention on Rights for People with Disabilities, ratified by over 127 so far. It links directly to Section 19, indirect discrimination, where policy can be discriminatory to a whole group of people with a protected characteristic, which is disability or dementia in this case. What could you do to help somebody with dementia. Well, here, look at Andy Tyso's excellent, brilliant Dementia Do campaign. If you're an employer, you would be expected to build a wheelchair ramp for somebody in a wheelchair who is an employee, right? So if you have a cognitive deficit, one would expect a similar approach, i.e. reallocation of a duty a disabled employee cannot do. So, in other words, give a person with memory problems not a job heavily involved in memory. This is called thought diversity, which we learn from corporate land and NHS horizons too. Providing a piece of equipment, well, such as Siri, for example. I'm making this up now, but you know what I mean. And here are the two examples. Now, I would like to mention this video link, not play it, but Richard Taylor, whose birthday would have been a few days ago, said, "Stop using dementia to campaign for us." It's quite hurtful that a person living with dementia felt the need to say that at an international conference, but there you go. And all of this is part of the anti-oppression arm of research. Oppression can be defined as a condition in which a particular social group is exploited or constrained for the benefit of another social group, whose members may not be conscious of either their privilege or their culpability. Well, think about that, but that's Wendy Holker again. So, NHS England is interested, obviously, in improving expensive care to people who use services. And here's a very elegant infogram about patient leaders making an impact. But you notice, quite low key, if at all, is them making an impact in policy. In other words, are they in the room when the English dementia strategy is being written? Guess what was totally different. Now, she has just produced a brilliant book called What the Hell Happened to My Brain, published by Jessica Kingsley Publishers. It explains in quite a detailed way her reaction to being diagnosed with dementia. She calls it living beyond dementia, her phrase, which in fact has a trademark, and it's encapsulates the issues about prescribed disengagement and how after a diagnosis you should be offered something, not be put into some form of managed decline. Anyway, Kate does not need as such engagement or involvement. She's written a book and is brilliant. I think part of the problem, and I would say this one tie, is corporate culture. We're all in this together, and public health has been captured in this way. When I first gave this talk, in fact, ironically on Twitter, there was a tweet from Barclays Bank from Tom Wright welcoming guests to a World Aging Conference, and some of these barriers and walls in culture are well known and have been well known since 1955, the famous Johari windows. I can't remember the actual name of the window. Rebecca Mars has to remind me every time, but some of culture is unseen. Here's a tweet, which, thanks to Helen Bevan for flagging this up. NPC, our own joy, tells The Economist, 50% of charities measure their impact to please funders. Only 5% to improve services. Now you'll be aware of the furore with Age UK and alleged involvement with various activities. But this is an issue because if charities are heavily distorted towards one arm of policy, there tends to be a zero-sum gain, where the other part of policy does not benefit. Now, for example, in the neoliberal Reaganite small state version of things, the magic bullet was meant to be the pill that could cure dementia to go down the cost of care, which involved care homes and at worst warehousing people with inappropriate use of antipsychotic drugs. Now, conferences are a good case point. I rarely go to conferences now. It's full of the same people, same talkers, speakers, same types of agenda. Not many people with dementia, if at all, not many carers. If there is one or two people with dementia carers, normally tends to be in a rather tokenistic involvement engagement way to make it look all legit, but they tend to be invited at the very last minute. I really do not like the way conferences run for dementia, which is really a good reflection of where co-production possibly is at the moment. Now, academics have a role to play. For example, if they decide to use terms to tap into literature to get grants, then they can inadvertently exacerbate the stigma and stereotypes, such as wandering. Now, many people with dementia and carers resent the term wandering. If a person goes for a walk, it can be misconstrued as wandering. Now, challenging behaviour is another case point, and Tyson is brilliant on this. Challenging for whom? Who's it challenging for? Is it challenging for the person with dementia or the medic? Now, often, challenging behaviour results from some breakdown in communication and sheer frustration of the person with dementia. But if you produce hundreds of papers and you want a big research grant on challenging behaviour, you will probably call your grant proposal a study of challenging behaviour, and this is all within a system which is geared up towards research impact, and many academics are simply playing a game rather than actually doing research to benefit people with dementia. Many aren't, I hasten to add. So, should or does policy trump rights? Yeah, who's he then? But human rights are inalienable and universal. This is really important. There's an arm of thought which thinks that if you discriminate on the basis of mental capacity, that is not on either. In other words, potentially the Mental Capacity Act under international law is unlawful. So therefore it makes sense morally, legally, not just to involve the better performing people with dementia in schemes of engagement and empowerment. One service user, in fact, said to me, I don't know what he or she meant by they, but they are more interested in the shiny new product rather than the process of co-design. So, in fact, dementia policy, like the elephant, really depends which part of it you're coming at it from the trunk end or the tail end. It's all a bit mysterious, but I think the term co-production does merit scrutiny, much exploited for the benefit of some. Think critically about what is happening. Think about all these terms like boat rocker, the edge, co-production, listening to the patient's voice, and all those. Think of what's actually going on in policy, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.